would like to welcome you to What Do You Want with my good friend, Martha Adams at Martha Adams Media. Martha, I'm so grateful for you to spend some time with me.
I'm so grateful to be welcomed by you. Thank you.
So Martha, what I like to do, we interview people, and I want to give so much value to our audience that they can implement, because I think stories can help people so much. So what I'd like to do is, if you don't mind sharing your story and go back a little ways, and we can expand off of that, because I really want them to get so much value of how you've turned your wants into your new life over the last several years. So if you don't mind starting off by sharing a bit about yourself, your story, where you came from to where you are now.
My story started from growing up in a immigrant household, in a well-to-do neighborhood, in a home that was rich in love, rich in our closeness as a family, not rich in the material wealth that surrounded us. And so that was, one way that I was really different. I started a career that was very male dominated. So I entered the financial industry, and as a, in my 20s, starting as a female independent certified financial planner was something that was really unheard of. And that's because it was normal for me to stand out, to make a difference. And today, I do exactly that, leading an emotional conversation around the money conversations.
Well, let's get deeper into this.
Sure.
I want to talk about money, but not yet.
Okay, let's not do it.
No.
Let's wait.
So I want to talk about you being in a male-dominated industry, and I want you to think about when you started. Where were your insecurities going in to what you overcame, and how did you overcome them?
So I was very comfortable standing out clearly in my industry, starting something really different. But the way I did that without realizing was that I would stand out and hide all at the same time. And so I was very comfortable making a difference between my four walls. And then I realized that my comfort was a disservice not only to myself, but more importantly, to others. And so I wanted to then break down those walls in every way that I could. And your help with that is how I was able to do it.
Well, that's nice of you, but I think you did the work.
It's kind, it's the truth.
So Martha and I worked for several years, where I coached her for several years, and we've had massive breakthroughs together. So, but going back to the four walls that you were talking about, what was, before you could break the wall, what did you do?
I made a decision.
I
made a decision, a committed decision to make a difference, and realized that it wasn't about me, it was through me. And if that was the case, then those walls couldn't exist. And the person responsible for those walls was me. So I must then start to break those down piece by piece. And that required the inner work.
I always tell people, if you're 99% in, you're 100% out. And we only have to go all in once, because then we anchor that connection and we know what all in feels like.
It's true.
How did you know you were all in and made that decision?
I committed to the feeling. I think so often we will either lower the volume or mute that feeling of wanting more, wanting to do more. And there can be so many factors that start to suppress that want. When we continue to acknowledge it and then provide ourselves with the tools that are going to amplify that want, we can start to move in the right direction. That's what I did.
See, you said something earlier that I hope everybody catches, that I was ready to do that deep internal work. It's that deep intrinsic work that most of the population runs away from. And I watch it all the time, people settling. What I admire about you is you get really into the work. You get into, we have to work on something, go to work on it right away. That is something that is intrinsic in people, but they don't bring it out. Why did you bring it out?
I surrounded myself with the right people. So the first thing you've got to do is believe in yourself. Because even if you have great ingredients, what happens? You've got to appreciate those ingredients. You can have really great ingredients on your countertop to cook. Great ingredients, right? So you can surround yourself with great things. But if you're not going to do anything with that, then it's lost.
Okay, let's take you back a little bit.
Okay, I'm ready.
You started as a very young professional in a male-dominated industry. You discovered I have these insecurities that I'm playing it small, playing it safe,
True.
just to fit in. You broke through the walls by going all in, saying, I'm going to do some internal work and I'm going to create the life that I want. So I want you to think about what I like to do when I'm mentoring my elite clients is I start off, but I will ask them, tell me about some of the quantum leaps you've achieved. So I want you to go back, not for, like looking back now, you could look at when they were quantum leaps. They may not be compared to quantum leaps today, but look at the 25-year-old Martha. What were a couple of the quantum leaps that you could look back and achieve, that you achieved?
So when I started the practice, I had a lot of barriers, internal barriers, that I had to break down. One was my family's expectations of me. I was not in what I would call the Fab Five career choices for an Egyptian immigrant family, which were, if you've made it as a parent, your child is a medical doctor, a pharmacist, a dentist, an engineer, or the consolation prize is they work for the government with a great pension, right? I was none of those. I was going into commerce and a finance major and living that not only now in something more comfortable like a salaried role. I was saying, hey, mom and dad, I'm going to go and start a business from nothing with no pension, no guarantee of salary, no guarantee of stability, what was, culturally believed to be stability. And so I had this massive block that I had to break down, which was, I'm doing the thing that is against everything my parents worked for, coming and starting from nothing so that I could build everything. The person that I was worried about the most was actually my greatest cheerleader.
You know what's so interesting listening to this? I asked you what your biggest quantum leap was, and you told me what you had to let go of.
That's the truth.
But I understand that. But my second question, follow-up question, was going to be about what was it that you had to let go of, which you answered. See, I think it's very common in elite performers, when they look back, they look at who they became and who they built, not what they got. And if I went and rewatched this, you didn't talk about how much your lifestyle changed, where you've traveled all over the world, how many people you've mentored, teaching them a healthy relationship with money. Everything was about what you let go of. It is really a testament to you, and I hope everyone's paying close attention to this, because it's not about what we get. The getting is part of the growing. You will get enormously blessed when you focus on doing what you were talking about, what you had to overcome, and when you let go of comfort. Now, let's fast forward, because you left the practice.
I did.
You had a bigger idea for yourself. So
Right.
How did you embrace that, and let them know what you're doing with that bigger idea, because it is an enormous idea that you are in the process of achieving.
You've built something from scratch and brought it to success. Become an elite advisor against the odds, against the tide, and then to say, I'm going to leave this to humble myself, again, starting from the ground up. And I did that because I believe in a meaningful financial conversation that actually focuses on the human experience. I mean, even what we're doing in this conversation right now is focusing on the human experience. And that's where the inspiration is. That's where the change is. That's where the results come from. And so when it comes to money, though, and when it comes to managing it, that's the piece that we either depreciate or completely write off.
Well, let's talk about money.
Let's do it.
I love talking about money.
Me too.
So because it's very misunderstood.
Yeah.
Extremely misunderstood. You said in the beginning of our interview you were rich in a lot of areas, but you didn't use these words. I'm using them. Financially poor when you were starting. And so how did you, first before I get into what is money, how did you change your relationship with it that built you up to now being an elite mentor and advisor for people all over the world, teaching them how to change their relationship with money? How did you do it yourself?
I decided, I was under 10 years old when I made this decision. I could see that growing up in a well-to-do neighborhood, I could very easily create a negative view and relationship with the idea of wealth. And I recognized that when I'm doing that, the other people in my story, the other characters, have the control, not me. That doesn't have to be the case. I don't have to be them, right? The idea of wealth that so many of us internalize means greed or means, poor behavior to others. All of these negative emotional associations that we internalize can define us. I decided at that point that my story refines me, does not define me. And so that's where I decided to emotionalize to the positive, to find the good, to decide who I am, and to then breathe life into those positive emotions.
So let's talk about money now.
Let's do it.
What are the biggest myths that you could debunk about money?
So one we talked about, which was that money equals greed. Money equals poor behavior. Money equals a negative myriad of, projections into the world. That is by far the biggest, because those beliefs, and while we've only listed a few, those beliefs consistently, in my experience, have led people to then want to either shrink, mute their voice, and ultimately become less.
Give me your definition of what money is.
Money is ultimately a tool. It really is a tool for whatever it is that you want in your life. I feel that money is of the greatest forms of self-expression. But our negative beliefs that we've internalized cause it to be a form of suppression.
Yeah, I work with clients all over the world, and they come to me and they'll say, I'll ask them what's holding them back. They say money. I say that's impossible. It's not a cause, it's an effect.
Agreed.
And to me, money is a report card of the good you're putting out. The more good, the more it's going to flow into your life. However, you have to have what you're talking about, a different relationship with it and a different understanding and changing the story of what money is. See, I could look at anybody. I could look at you. I could look at the person down the street. They have the same potential. They can decide what they want, and they can heal that relationship.
Absolutely.
What would be, in your opinion, and you're an expert in this field, that in your opinion, what would be the 3 best ways for somebody watching this who's really struggling to change their relationship with money?
3 A's. The first is acknowledgement, especially around the way we manage money. We so often don't acknowledge the way that we feel because those feelings are discounted, right? Or completely written off. So acknowledging our feelings that they are in fact there leads the way to the second A, which is awareness. When we're building an awareness for where those feelings originated, so why is it that I feel this way? Where in my story influenced these feelings and beliefs? You're starting to connect with yourself, the essential. We're so focused on the external of money. And that's not where the change is. Even in our conversation today, we're talking about doing the inner work. Mm-hmm. That's what's so key with every aspect of money in our lives. And then once we've done that, once we've had the acknowledgement, we've created the awareness, now we can do the essential thing, which is to change the action. We're often just wanting to change the action, and then we're in this endless loop, trying to change, and then back to where we were, and then trying to change and back to where we were. It's exhausting. Mm-hmm. And then we ultimately give up.
All right, so I want to add to these 3 A's on what you said. I love them. Acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. So in my language, we're saying the same thing, just in a different way. You have to be aware if I have money wounds. Absolutely. I have to acknowledge, listen, I have money wounds. I'm making a definite decision, no different than I did, no different than you did when you started your career, to say, this is where I'm going. That's acknowledgement. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely.
Awareness. Change our attitude towards money.
Absolutely.
All we have to do is look at it from a different perspective. Like Wayne Dyer used to always say, if you change the things you're looking at, the things you look at will change. So we have to see ourselves with what we want. And we have to commit to what we want. And the third one is action. We have to change our behaviors. We have to behave like the person who would behave like they already had X amount of money.
Absolutely.
I love the 3 A's. The 3 A's, you know why I love them? Because acronyms, you build anything into AAA, 3 A's, anything, it's easy for somebody to remember. And whatever somebody can remember, they could duplicate. They could do it over and over again. I've got another follow-up with your experience. How long does it take, in your opinion, from somebody who has a very low emotional IQ towards money to build a very significant emotional IQ by practicing the 3 A's? How long does it take to implement?
So the key there is the desire. Desire is fuel. If I don't fuel the tank, that's what takes long. Yeah. Right? Because you're ultimately trying to push the car down the road. Once you have that desire, it is amazing how rapid the change happens.
You know, it's interesting. When I'm hearing that, it doesn't surprise me, because I know if you do the work works.
It's true.
See, I believe without a why, it's not possible.
It's true.
My mentor and I used to argue this. We used to argue it. I said, I think you have to have a big why. He said, not everybody. And I said, I've never seen anyone do anything without a big why.
It's true.
Why do people chase money?
Comparison. So often it's comparison. We've been taught comparison from our childhood. We're compared to our siblings, right in our household. We're compared between our classmates in school. We're compared to our colleagues in our workplaces. We're compared to our spouses in our relationships. Every layer of what I've created as the pyramid of financial influences is connected to comparison. The change happens when we shift that comparison to inspiration. Comparison is depreciating. So we're chasing something, ultimately depreciating ourselves to be something that may or may not be true to who we are. Inspiration is appreciating. We become more of ourselves. Now we're not chasing something, we are becoming and continuing to grow into who we are. That's what I believe.
You know, this is an interesting perspective, because I believe the same thing. Everything is inside. I've chased money. When
we all have.
Yeah, we all have.
We all have.
But I have. So
me too.
And I know when I chased it, it was the most empty I ever was.
Absolutely.
Like I had to go work on my identity. And you bring up comparisons, which is an interesting perspective because I agree with that. But a lot of people don't even know they're comparing. Yeah, I teach standards quite a bit. I think they're so important. You and I worked a lot on standards.
My favorite.
And, you know, the biggest losing game there is comparing your standard with somebody else's because we're all unique. We've got to create and measure it against our uniqueness.
Yes.
Our desire. Like, I don't have the same standards in you. You don't have it, and you shouldn't. We should not. We have to create our own. That removes the comparison. That's what frees you up emotionally to go create wealth. For me, it's about wealth. Money is one aspect of wealth.
Yes.
And we can initiate it within a second by thinking of the good we have, not I wonder when it's going to happen. So when you're watching somebody's watching this, they go, I'd love to have their life. I always say everybody wants the results of the top elite performer, top 1 to 3%, but they're not willing to do the internal work the top 1 to 3% do. Yeah, to me, greatness is in everyone.
Agreed.
And I always say standards the DNA to greatness because it's your foundation. Without a foundation, you wilt. And most people's foundation is coming from the outside in. They have it completely backwards. You have to build your philosophy, your standard, your identity, because that creates your result. But I can't give you greatness. You already had it. It's your job to do that work to bring it outside of you. Everybody has it. It isn't like me and you have it and she doesn't or he doesn't. We all have it. You know, to me, I love doing these interviews because it goes into the heart that all of us are the same. All of us have our own story. I'll tell you something I told my son the other day. He was, well, what is success? What do you think? I said, well, what do you think? And everything was outward. He's 11, so everything's external, right? And I said, all you have to do is remember one thing. You have to decide exactly what you want.
It's true.
See, that's what you've done. That's what that woman did. That's what everybody watching this has to do. They think it's this dramatic, huge thing, but everything starts with our want. And then we have to ask ourselves, what is the price we're going to have to pay? Well, you've told me what you've released, so you're paying the price. And I say paying because we're not done. We're going to have to continue paying prices to keep growing.
It's true.
And the third one is we have to decide, are we all in or all out?
Absolutely.
You know, and I keep having them repeat it to me. Day 2, you already forgot it. But I said, no, keep telling me. I keep asking them every day. See, that's what you've done. You've been an extraordinary example to not just your family, but to the people who watch you. See, I know it because I know what people have told me and my family, not just my close family, but my extended family and friends. And then you ripple effect into the community. Look how many people you're changing the game around money by just educating them. You have to keep doing it because it is the most misunderstood philosophy. And there shouldn't be somebody living poorly. I think living poorly is a mental disease. And you're doing an extraordinary job. What I'd like you to do to close this out is if you were to give 2 to 3 of the most effective success principles that you've implemented from when you really committed to now, if you could share it with our audience so they can implement it.
The first thing is believing in your why. We talked so much today about the power of the why. The why fuels the want. Believing in the why to fuel the want. The commitment that leads to urgency in the actions, and now breathing life into all of that creates the beauty of the goal.
That's beautiful. I love it though. Breathing life. If we're either breathing life into what we want or what we don't want. You know, what you did is that's what stuck with you, and it's so simple. That's the beautiful part of success. It's just a few simple disciplines practiced 10,000 times. You're going to practice something 10,000 times anyway. You might as well be great. That's what I believe. And for me, it goes with commitment, which you said. It goes with our why. We have to know exactly what we want, and we have to build our standard.
It's true.
You do that, you're going to win. Well, thank you so much. It was so
you
great
so
having
much.
you here, and
my
I really
pleasure.
appreciate it. I know they're going to get a ton of value from this.
It's my honor.